Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. A lot of the momentum stuff is deflating on this what could go wrong Wednesday. BTC, of course, also kind of just treading water here at around 108-ish. And if the entire market is challenged, alts, which haven't done well when the market was up, certainly isn't going to do well when the rest of the market is challenged. What I have drawn here on dominance is a potentially eventual bearish picture for dominance. But I think, as we've talked about, this is a 3-day chart, and this could play out over months. There's a scenario where cycles don't exist anymore, and alts have some magic in Q1, Q2, kind of like they did in 2021. And we get this head and shoulders on dominance. Possible, not opposed to it. The actionable part of this is not here. It is not at the peak at 62% or wherever this goes of the right shoulder, but the neckline. Now that's where people get into trouble. They start to front run this, or they start to identify chart patterns. They front run a little bit instead of trading it as a breakout. Maybe you can cheat this if we get back down here to 58. But if you're trading this as a head and shoulders, certainly got to wait. It's fair to think about it in the longer term as a potential idea, but you also have to read the room. Alt's not showing a lot of strength at all on a relative basis. Total 2 against BTC showing the same thing, just opposite. Could get an inverted head and shoulders here. This takes out Stablecoin, so it's a little different than straight dominance. But again, where's the actionability? It's priced back above cloud, green cloud, bullish TK cross, priced back above the neckline. You've got none of that here. So actionability wise in the near term, to me, just isn't there on the index. So to expect anything individually would be unusual if the index looks like that. This is total 2 and it's in the cloud. So again, what do you want here? You want this back up to 1.6, retesting highs. That move on 1010 really destroyed any structure that was building across the market. Stablecoins have continued to print and mint USDC a little bit slower than Tether. Tether is on pace to reach 200 billion here in short order, probably within the end of the year. So that's a very good sign for crypto health. Eventually that may work its way into alts. It helps that there is that amount of liquidity sloshing around in the ecosystem of the crypto pipes. But none of this stuff is like an immediate if this then that, print a stablecoin, get a 200% move on your favorite alt. That's generally not how it works. And ETHBTC is a great bellwether of everything. Generally, it isn't above a high time frame cloud, is still consolidating, has had a huge move off the bottom. And that's that. I mean, there's really nothing else to say. It is starting to get into the cloud. You could potentially play this as an edge-to-edge trade within the next 2 to 4 weeks. The closer this is to the TK lines, the better from an entry perspective. The closer it is to the cloud, the better. It's basically in the cloud-ish here now. Anything close to 03 in the cloud would be better than 035. This could pattern out as an inverted head and shoulders. Imagine Diabolical would be a huge Adam and Eve. Here's the Adam. Eve would go all the way down to 02. I don't think we'll see that, but that's something to just put in the back burner if we go down that low. I just don't see a lot of actionability here on ETHBTC just yet on the weekly. And like I said in the open, all the momentum stuff really deflating today. This is the quantum group. Rigetti, Qubit, IONQ, QBTS, all of it rolling over. This is really where the alt season was. Miners rolling over as well in a big way after hitting near 70 all the way back down. Sub 50. You could consider a bid at the Kijun here, but you got to be careful as this stuff deflates. It gets pretty wild to the downside pretty quickly. So it really depends on your own vibes. I think if you're sitting in 100% cash, you're looking at some of this stuff, thinking about it. But if you're sitting in a lot of risk here, I can't imagine you're like, okay, let's buy WGMI at the Kijun. You also have uranium pulling back at the Kijun, Oklo pulling back down to the Kijun, and even gold is well on its way to the daily Kijun. I'm just pointing that level out. That's usually a good buy level after it's been established. It's some sort of 50% fib or 50% retrace on a high time frame. So if the leaders in the market look like that, getting slaughtered basically, then alts can't expect much currently. And I'll just go to Kraken because I can flip through these charts super quick. But BTC, you have a bearish Kumo twist. You have price below cloud. You have a failed attempt at getting higher yesterday. Yesterday, that candle was very ugly. To go all the way back to 115 almost, and then smack it down and close the day red. A lot of OG selling, a lot of China selling. Just feels like an infinite amount of Chinese linked wallets selling. So until that stops and or buyers step in a bigger way, it's hard to get bullish about BTC in the near term, and it's certainly hard to get bullish about alts in the near term. Maybe we work out some sort of inverted head and shoulders here on a lower time frame for BTC. Kind of a mess, but we'll take it, right? That would be a hold above 111. At this point, everything's been smacked down in quick succession so much that I think it's going to take an extended period of time living at 115 to even trust it for most people. We, of course, have this Megaphone still in play. That hasn't changed. And my issues with the megaphones are multitudes, but mainly it's just harder when you have both a diagonal support and diagonal resistance. This just widens out, right? Something else to watch for in the way back burner. If we get this to any degree, which would be a gigantic diamond top that you could see from Mars, then that to me is also a be careful cycle over type discussion. We've formed half of it. Now, Megaphone is always half of a diamond. It just depends on what happens here. But it's hard to stay optimistic just based on the cloud. Above 115, I can get a lot more optimistic. And if that Chinese seller or multiple sellers slows down or stops or whatever, then it's a different story. But overall, this is not great price action across the board. A lot of people wondering, should I sell? Right? A lot of people are wondering that. I think if you're holding alts on page 35 and on, and they're still worth something, you know, you got to take a look in the mirror at yourself and say, what do I want out of this in the near term? What is my time horizon? As a reminder, bear markets typically last a year. So if this is the top, a year from now would be October 2026. Beyond that, it takes 1,000 days to reach a new all-time high. Historically for BTC, that would be forever from now. So your alt would have to survive 4 years, basically, of who knows what. Hey, it's possible, right? It's possible. But that's like max bearish scenario is a year of down followed by 3 years of recovery for alts. But for BTC here, we do not want to live below the cloud much longer. We still have the 50-week moving average fine. We still have pitchfork midpoint fine. But this is not a conversation you want to be having 1,000 days from a low. I don't care what people say about the 4-year cycle. Everybody's looking at this. Everybody's thinking about it. Everybody's asking, is this how we're going to get should I sell? Literally everybody. So you can ignore that and say it doesn't exist and it's pointless and it won't continue and the cycles don't happen anymore. That's fine. But I'm telling you what everybody's thinking. And I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're thinking that as well. ETH looks better than BTC because it is in the cloud. If this continues to pull lower, it's not going to randomly outperform BTC. I mean, it's going to likely return to the 2,500 level if this breaks down. It's just, what is the actionability here today? Nothing. Above the cloud, you're bullish. Below, you're bearish. In the cloud, you're neutral. That's it. You know, there's nothing else to say. Nothing else to do. I don't even see a potential chart pattern brewing, maybe an Adam and Eve on low time frames, but you've got another week to think about that. So nothing there. And across the board, same thing. You know, what is there to do or see? Nothing, right? You are starting to get below the cloud after misery, in this case on Solana, of working your way in and out of the TK lines above the cloud. Nothing looks good here. There's nothing good to say about any of this stuff from a bullish side, a bullish viewpoint. You need considerable moves higher that hold to be bullish. I sold a bunch of Solana today, my remainder. I did sell a bunch in the 200s, just like I was DCAing out, and whatever I had left, got rid of today. You know, my patience is over with alts across the board. Ripple also, there are some discussions to be had about certain alts launching certain ETFs. Will that do anything? Will that help? I mean, we'll see, right? This could be a low time frame inverted head and shoulders. We'll see. But none of this stuff here today, as I record, looks tradable to me. It all looks very, very bearish or just unactionable. Tau barely holding above the cloud there. Really hasn't done anything. You know, right. This is something I'm perpetually asking myself about alts. If you're here to trade alts, are you here to trade a narrow range of 320 to 420, right? You know, we're just picking on Tau here, but is that why you're here, honestly? Or are you here because you want this to go to 900, right? So anything at highs, I like a lot more. But across the board, again, not seeing much. There are some inverted head and shoulders potential, but has to pull back up. In this case, length to 19. What is there to do here, right? What is there to do? Tell me. Let me know. You've got highly actionable stuff here and back here. And let's add another one. Let's go here, right? Those were the actionable places to take this trade. Next spot would be here if we can get back there. But I do not see anything here. Sui also kind of just holding at those levels, and all these charts are kind of forever ruined by mega wicks on 1010. This not holding up particularly well. And it could be the case that all this stuff just needs tons and tons of time to recover, tons and tons of time to fill in. So again, you have to ask yourself, do you want to sit through that, or you just want to sit it out, do something else? PAXG gold pulling back. We looked at that. LTC again, just gross ranges on anything that isn't holding lows. I'm a momentum breakout trend guy. I do not see that on anything here. If LTC can get back above 130, sure. But today at the moment, not a fan. I would rather buy this at 130 and be wrong than fool around with it down here when it's in a range without momentum. ENA, also move this down here. There's just nothing to do, right? And that's just kind of the case across the board. The cloud's really good at screening for potential trend setups. Stellar below. AVAX below. Looks not great. Say continues to bleed. Curve continues to hold at lows. Monero, nothing. What is there? Nothing. Aave, nothing, right? And we can go on and on and on. We'll flip through these charts super, super quick. I don't see anything here that looks actionable to me. FET just continuing to bleed. SNX had a couple weeks of up. Ondo, TIA, remember TIA? Endless down chop. Endless. Algo, near. So look, across the board, I don't have anything good to say. INJ, ARB, ton. None of this stuff is really recovered other than maybe SNX, Mantle. I don't know. But across the board, none of this stuff is really recovered. Wormhole, CRO, Beam, all these setups completely dead and broken. AXL, STX, real uplifting video today. HNT, Rune, Kaito. So anything, at least on my list, really doesn't look good. Memes, I can't imagine look any better. Doge at lows there. There's some like low time frame inverted head and shoulder stuff, but it's a little early across the board on all that. SPX, Fartcoin, that belongs at 0. Let it go. Pengu, no. Pepe, no. Whiff, no. Bonk, no. Shib, no. Trump, also at lows. Toshi, no. Rolling over. Floki, no. Dog, no. Mudang, no. Popcat, no. Mog, also at lows. Titcoin ready for new all-time lows. And let's, for fun, just do a quick scan of the BTC pairs. If you're still with me, not everything's going to be bullish all the time, but I think a lot of people who've been focused on alts for 3 years are now very disappointed because they never saw anything come of that for the most part. ETHBTC in the cloud, nothing to do there. Sol BTC below the cloud, nothing to do there. XMR BTC historically has done better in down chop for BTC. So it does have some like anti-risk correlation, but again, is that why you're here? Like just trade something else, right? Why bother? Doge BTC looked great, and then 1010 happened. ADA LTC BTC, what does that look like on high time frames? Let's take a look. Yeah, just continued down. Even XLM was setting up nice. Tron has just been essentially in multi-month chop, multi-year chop. It's really gone nowhere since 2022 against BTC. Link also against BTC, just nothing. So, you know, I don't always have good news. I don't always have trade ideas for people. Today's certainly one of those days, one of those weeks, one of those periods of time where we do not have anything good to say from a cloud perspective. So I'd stay patient, stay vigilant, looking for setups. But on the crypto side, don't really see much, and that's disappointing because prior to 1010, we looked great, right? We were making highs, we were breaking out, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. So that's all I have for this one. Give me a like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.